Well, hey, thanks for having me here. My name is David Marks. I'm a senior solution architect for Red Hat and Partner Channel. I work closely with Mosier and other partners. Happy to be here to talk about Ansible automation, and feel free to ask any questions as we go.
I'll watch the chat. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat and I will interrupt David and keep everything going. Chat is disabled, he says. I will enable chat. Allow you to do that.
All right. Well, yeah. So let's dive into this. What we're going to do is we're going to unpack this. Today's presentation is kind of high level, and it's going to talk about automation in general terms and kind of how to get your hands around it within your organization. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the business benefits of automating, and then we're going to talk about some of the challenges that we're resolving, we're fixing through automation, and we'll talk a little bit about Red Hat Ansible Automation Platform, which is what we offer in the area of automation, and then we're going to talk about public cloud, because public cloud is a big issue or a big deal right now. And I'll give you some customer examples. And let me try to get rid of this bar down here.
See if you can pull it.
Yeah. There we go. All right. All right. Let me go back. This is really flaky right now. Sorry, everybody. And then what we're going to do is then we'll talk about the center of excellence, the whole concept behind that, and we'll go from there. So let's talk about benefits first. Automation is a big deal right now, and a lot of it's really coming from the boardroom. It's coming from the highest level, the message is that which if you know anything about Red Hat, we you probably know us from Red Hat Enterprise Linux, but we have over 40 different products, and the automation portion of our business is growing about 50% a year, so it's taking off. It's not only a competitive edge, but it also provides me consistency. If I automate and I do the same thing over and over and over again, provide and I have consulted with two years. In my previous life, I was a consultant in the past 10 years of the business. And every time I would engage IT departments, I would ask them, hey, how do you spend your time? And it's about 80-20. 80% of their time typically was spent just keeping the lights on. Now, again, some people would spend all their time just keeping the lights on. Other people would work on special projects, but it was usually 80-20. 80% of the time you're just keeping the lights on, 20% of the time actually doing projects, what I call needle mover projects that really make a difference to the organization. The idea behind automation is changing that mixture. What if we can give you back 30% of that 80%, and so you can focus your people on the projects that really matter? Another benefit too is manpower, using resources, and I'll give you another example. In my career, I managed a team of DBAs and database developers, and I had the senior level DBA. He was really, really good, and it was out in California. And guess what happened when he decided to visit his daughter in New York City? He was in the air, and all heck broke loose. And automation helps get around that as well, because now I can actually codify, put that into code of the automation, those steps that normally I'd need an expert. So I can have my senior level guys write the automation, and I can have my junior level guys run it. So that's a good thing. Speeds up development and operational velocity. Touch on that just a little bit too, is one of the things that I have noticed about IT departments is they're perceived to be more of a blocker in the, than an enabler. And that's been a real problem, and that's actually causes a lot of problem with a lot of cloud services, because you'll see line of business, blanking IT. So it becomes really important to try to speed up IT. Automation does just that. And then the ability to see and measure configuration drift. Wouldn't it be nice to ask your switches, your network switches in your systems, how are you configured? And to compare that, now from, gold copy to what's currently happening now, and look for drift. Wouldn't that be nice? And we can do just that with automation as well. So this came out, this slide here is a couple years old. Gartner came out in 2020 when we're in the midst of this crazy pandemic. And they noticed this trend, and this trend was this new title, automation architect. And they estimated that, at that time, it was about 20% of enterprises actually had that role. But they estimated by 2025, about 90% of companies would have it. And so, yeah, come on in. And we're trending along this line. So we're definitely going along this trend. And we're seeing that because it's a hot part of our business. So let's talk about some of the challenges. We talked about benefits. Let's talk about some of the things that business challenges that I would use automation for. What I'm trying to do is I would just like to kind of get ourselves in the mindset to understand what the value is of automation. So here's just some common challenges. Inconsistency, it'll definitely address that. Configuration error. Did you know, this is based on some of the polling we've done, about 68% of network administrators still do their job manually. They still configure those switches in a manual manner. And that can cause problems. That can cause security holes. How many times have we deployed applications only to, oh, it's not quite working. Oh, I need this port open. You call the network guy, you finally track down the port. And you know what? No one did any research beyond that. He opens up a port. Do you really want it open? So it configuration errors. Time-consuming upgrades. When you automate, it really accelerates doing upgrades. And how many times have, if you ever, and in my career I've done this, is where I've had to stay up till 2 in the morning just to hit the window in which I can take a system down or do some work, right? And so wouldn't it be nice to either accelerate that or, rather than being sleepy and tired, actually doing the commands, running some type of automation to actually do it. So something that I've tested and I know works, right? Here's one, and we're going to talk about this quite a bit today, is too many tools. Too many tools is an issue because you can get into I can do some scripting using shell script. I can go in and maybe I use Cisco DNA to do my Cisco networking automation, and I use maybe Puppet, and I'm using all these different tools and actually try to develop best practices among all these different tools becomes a problem. And then personnel issues is a big one. Right now, it's hard to find people. Becomes really important to automate, to free up people from having to do those mundane tasks. So, if you look across the organization, whether it's network ops, IT ops, security, we're all kind of doing similar things. We're configuring software, we're configuring systems, right? We're doing patching. We're maybe moving data from one system to the next. So we're all kind of doing the same things. And if we end up using a different tool within each of the organizations, how difficult is that to actually build excellence in what you're doing, with automation? So what if we had a tool that we could standardize on, that we could automate across the whole enterprise? Whether I'm managing configurations or, provisioning or securing or looking for compliance across any technology, just about, right? What if I use the same tool? Now I can develop best practices around that tool. And we're going to talk about this. So, the other thing that it would do is it would break down silos. You'd be sharing best practices across silos. Your network guy would, could communicate to your IT ops guys, and you would have some consistency in the way you approach business. And wouldn't it be nice to be able to do that either on the edge, within the public cloud or the private cloud or in our data? So today we're going to talk about all this, and but I do want to divert, kind of do a left turn just for a second and kind of talk through this. Here is another facet, and I love this slide because here's another facet, another problem with automating. You decide to do it on your own. And the problem is at this box on the top, I'm thinking, okay, I got this work and I'm going to automate this work. And so I'm going to write some code. So I'm buying into additional work for me, right? To actually create this automation. However, and my expectation is when automation takes over, then it's going to be free sailing. I'm going to free up my time. The reality is I'm writing the code, I'm debugging the code, I'm kind of tweaking with it, rethinking it, and I have this ongoing development. So how do I get around that, right? This is a real problem. How do I get around that? And we're going to talk today how we get around it. So anybody can automate, but not everybody can automate on an enterprise scale for the enterprise. So let's talk a little bit about Red Hat Ansible Automation Platform. And we're kind of the de facto standard, and I'll get into that right here. And about 44% of the market in a very crowded market. And these are the reasons why. Developers like us. We're easy to use. We're easy to work with. Forrester likes us. We're in the leaders quadrant. And you'll notice that this is kind of a, I'm looking at this, and which I think is kind of interesting is that you look at Cisco, the breadth of the automation that we provide is much broader than what Cisco, Microsoft, or VMware provides, although they are also in the leader quadrant. We're all open source. Red Hat is all about open source technology. And why are we about that? Because we believe that it fuels innovation. And Ansible's an oddball, really. I mean, if you look, not an oddball, but it's unique. It's interesting because out of a couple of million different open source projects, Ansible ranks number 9 in contributions. Nearly 7,000 contributors contribute to the project, which means that it really, innovation really has taken off within that project. New functionality gets added all the time. You look out the skill sets in high demand on LinkedIn and also job searches, and the ROI, I wanted to point this out, is the ROI is actually quite short. It's not a hard decision to think about automation and using Ansible automation. Just 5 months to the payback after a 5-year ROI is over 600%. Look at this at the bottom. We found that the reduction in unplanned downtime like 76%. It's overcutting, over an half. So each one of these, you can have the presentation. We'll send that out. Each one of these have a link to it. So you can actually go and check out the white paper. So let's talk a little bit what makes Ansible kind of unique and what makes it, how do we avoid all that rework? How do why is it why is it, kind of unique and beneficial? So, and really a lot of all the heavy lifting for Ansible is what all the and module plug in, just a bit of code to actually do the automation work. And we have certified collections of these modules per technology. And we have about 60 certified partners. You go out to the open source community, there's thousands. Okay, so there's plenty. But what is certified content buy you? What it buys you is it buys you something that's supported, something that there's nothing nefarious in there. There's not bad coding. There's not bad practices. Most of the time, with few exceptions, this certified content is actually created by the vendor themselves. So certified content, for say IBM storage, written by IBM, right? And these are all the partnerships and more so that we have. So what do you get with certified content? So if I go and with the way Ansible works is I get access to all this content. All I have to do is entitle the managed node. I don't have to worry about, oh, well, how many switches do I have and how many servers do I have? They're all nodes. We don't care. You can download what you need, use what you need. The other added benefit to this too, and is, I was at a presentation and I was talking to a room and I asked how many people have Cisco gear in their enterprise, and all the hands went up. And I said, okay, how many of you only have Cisco networking? And all the hands went up. Because nowadays, Cisco used to be everything, right? And now, they have Juniper, they have Arista, the whole bit. They have all these different types of technology. What's nice about this is all those are supported through automation. So if I settled on just a Cisco DNA to do my automation, I'm kind of stuck with just automating Cisco. But now I can automate across technologies, across disciplines, across everything. So where does Ansible stand out? I can do just about any use case with it. All these different technologies are supported. And I can string those together. I can do, you name it, I can do it just about with Ansible. It's also flexible, and I got to mention this too, is it's unique in the fact that it does not use an agent. And so what an agent is just a little bit of software that you'd run on a server, right? And you would open up a network port, and the agents would communicate with some software, right? And that's how some automation tools work. Ansible didn't work that way. It uses standard interfaces, standard ports. So you can close down. You don't have a port that's open that increases your backup, right? So someone could make use of that and attack your environment. Ansible just uses standard SSL 440 port or WinRM for Windows machines. And then network devices, there's a lot of network devices I can't even put an agent on. And the way Ansible works with those is that it's a built-in, it uses a network CLI, command line interface, to actually interact with those, just like what a user would interact. So, and then it's open source, completely open source. And so again, the innovation is really, it's very fast philosophy there. So let me talk about some other points that people may not have thought through with it. Is that the first one I'm going to talk about is that many of the modules, so again, the modules do the heavy lifting for the automation. Many of the modules are item potent, and if they're not, that's the standard. And if they're not item potent, they'll say so, right? And what does that mean? Well, that means that I could run it multiple times and not screw things up. I could run it, and if I run it, the module again against the technology, what I might get is, hey, it didn't change anything, but it's not going to wreck things, right? So that's super important. And again, that makes that curve of doing the development, or not really development, but automation, pulling together automation, what we call them playbooks, to actually do units of work of automation. It makes it much simpler because, I can rerun these and not have to worry about if they've been run the first time. I don't have to put a lot of logic in my what we call a playbook. And then finally, we're going to talk. I'm just going to jump down here and talk about workflows. Workflows become really important and very powerful because, again, going back, Ansible works across technologies. It works across disciplines. So now what I can do is I can string those together and actually do a lot of work with a multi-step procedure. So in this particular example here, there's just a screenshot of a workflow. I think it's reconfiguring a network switch. These JT is called it's a job template. It's a terminology that's used, but it would basically relate to what is called a playbook. And that playbook would be in source control. So everything that Ansible is doing is pulling from source control. And it's in this particular example, it's backing up the configs, it's deploying the configuration. If an error gets thrown, it will restore from the backup. If the deployed configuration is successful, it will go through a test to test the state. And then it'll update this record of what's out there and what this configuration script is. And you can see that through this workflow. And the benefit there is now each one of these is a unit of work, and I've strung that together to do something more complex. So let me give you an example, and this is a far example, but say for example, I have ServiceNow, right? And I want to raise a ticket in ServiceNow. We have a ServiceNow module. So I raise a ticket in ServiceNow to say provision an application. It can go and kick off automation that could provision a virtual machine on VMware, let's say, provision storage on NetApp, attach that storage to the virtual machine, open up the network ports for the virtual machine, right? Deploy an application to the virtual machine, and then finally maybe update an F5 load balancer to start directing traffic to the machine, and then at the very end, up to the ticket that it was already done, that everything was done. It's all automated. That is the power in workflows. And each one of those are different, separate steps that I can string together and put logic behind. Now you might be looking at this and you might be saying, okay, well, wait a second. Well, what about if, say, I'm deploying an app to a unit acceptance test environment? I need a user to approve that. And it supports that as well. So I can go within any workflow, I can put a step to either approve or deny, and I can look at the results of the previous step. And then a person can click the approve button. Now, so what Ansible has is it has the software, it's called the Ansible Controller, and it resides on a server, and it's your single pane of glass that you can go and look within your enterprise and see those job templates actually running, that automation running. And it supports role-based access control. So now I can have my senior level guys write the automation and have my junior level guys run the automation, right? And and so I can schedule jobs, I can do a whole host of things all through this controller that exists.
I do have a question on, or maybe it's a statement.
Yeah.
He said Cisco FTD doesn't have CLI configuration.
Okay.
Statement. I don't know if that's
Cisco FTD. So we have a real tight partnership with Cisco. I would have to do some research on that. They just dropped a bunch more modules out there. I think there's, of the certified collections, I think there's 6 or 8 certified collections, over 1,100 modules to automate their stuff. Meraki was just released out there. So, so I would have to look and see, but they again, these certified collections are written by the vendor, by Cisco, to actually automate their technology. So I'd have to see if that's one of the collections that they provided. Did that answer your question? Okay, all right. Yeah, it's pretty cool. You can go out there and look, actually do a search on certified collections and see all the stuff that's actually supported out there. It's all, we share everything. It's just what we do. So let's talk about public cloud, so, I'm in the public cloud and I'm just going to be in the public cloud. How can I do this in the public cloud? Well, in Azure Marketplace, I can spin up a whole environment to support Ansible automation. And so it will spin it up. There's actually 17 different technologies that are behind the scenes in this. And it will spin it up, set up the controller, and do all this stuff for you. AWS, we're not there yet, but we will be in I think about a month and a half. So we're actively working on this right now, and this is going to come out as well. And so you'll be able to spin up Ansible in the public cloud. Now, and I don't know if I was really clear on this. One of the things that Ansible does is they can do provision of cloud resources just as well as they can provision data center resources. So it supports all of it. So,
David, I'm sorry, what was the first one before AWS?
Sure.
Azure, yeah. And so these are the easy buttons for it's pretty easy anyway. So, and just some customer examples. I'm going to give you a couple of these, and I think we have 4 or 5 more slides. That's it. Microsoft is one of our customers, and they use this. You use Ansible to actually automate a lot of their help desk tickets, and they were able to reduce them by a huge number, 97 and 98. Comcast. This is the reason why I include this is I love this example. So Comcast, they started. They had a lot of manual process, and they started rolling out servers. And a new release of the server, they'd have a new gold copy, and they roll that out, and they patch some of them, and it just got to be a mess. And then when the help desk would be called, they're like, "Hey, could you investigate this problem?" They had no idea. What's the release that you're running on? What are the patches? And then now they have this mess, thousands of servers that are out there. How do I rectify that and get them all on the same page? And they used Ansible to actually do that and go out and patch things and rev them up to probably several common OS images. So it's interesting because you're changing tires on a moving car. You got to run your business, and you got this mess. How do you fix it, right? So it's kind of cool. So let's talk now about Center of Excellence. I'm going to set 3 slides, and we'll talk a little bit about this. But what I wanted to present to you today with Ansible, the fact that it supports technologies and workflows across disciplines, right, gives you the ability to actually set up a Center of Excellence. You can employ best practices and governance across your enterprise with respect to automation using Ansible. So what is a Center of Excellence? This is from Wikipedia. It's a team, a shared facility, or an entity that provides leadership, best practices, research, support, and/or training for some technology. In this case, it's automation. And if you think about it, if I had, say, a half a dozen different tools, some people were doing, shell scripting, and some people are using Cisco DNA, and some people are using Puppet or Chef, Terraforms for the cloud stuff. How in the heck do I keep track of all that, and how do I employ best practices? So now I have a challenge, right? And so Ansible gets around all that because you can use Ansible for all those things. You can employ best practices for that. So this is an example of this approach slide, and I just wanted to kind of put a bug in your ear. regarding this is, network operations is all common sense, but really the cycle is I want to plan it out, I want to develop the playbook. And so the playbook, again, heavy lifting is done by the modules. All the playbook does is just calling a module, asking parameters in the module, and the module does all the heavy lifting. And so I plan it out, I develop the playbook, and oh, by the way, there's tons of examples out there that you can reuse and repurpose. I want to test it out, I want to deploy it, and then I want to operate using it, and then always go through that cycle to fine tune it. One of the things that you can do with automation is I can ask switches, I can ask the servers, what's your configuration, right? So it's called gathering facts. But what you want to do is start with something that's simple, it's a little straightforward, get your feet wet, and then start rolling from there. And going back, it does not use agents. And what does that mean to you? It means that I can tackle a network problem, and then I can tackle a server problem. So let me give you an example on that. So there was a hospital out in Denver, and the hospital noticed NetApp is retiring their workflow administration tool, or workflow, WFA, workflow automation tool. And they're retiring that, and they're suggesting Ansible, right? That's what they suggest. And so this, these, folks came in, they were talking to the hospital, hey, we need a storage automation tool. We need something there. And so they went in, they engaged the hospital, and then they start pulling in other groups, the networking group, and the infrastructure group, and in the first two use cases, they're automating a lot. It was a big thing, and the first few use cases had nothing to do with the storage automation. They saw the value elsewhere too, and they decided to start on network automation and server automation as the first two out of the gate. So there's value across your enterprise for looking at Ansible for an automation plan. And so let's talk about best practices a little bit. And I just have a few best practices here for you, and we'll talk through those. Reconsider automation as a strategic defense. So what you want to do is it's not just a tool, it's not a tactical tool. Huge value in using automation in an enterprise. I'm also going to go down here and talk about the one at the bottom is also include in penetration testing your automation software, your targets. You want to make sure everything's secure, because the keys of the kingdom is in your automation. You want to pair up your automation architects with your discipline leads when you start creating playbooks. And the reason being is it takes different skill sets. So if I sat down and I'm like, I'm an automation architect, I can't just sit down and say, oh, this is exactly how you configure a switch. The network guy will tell you that, right? And so working together is what we want to do to tackle that. Also, too, the automation architect will provide consistency across automation, the different disciplines. I'll go back to that. Pilot non-critical apps first. Start easy, start slow. To give you an idea, you can get productive with Ansible in an afternoon. Okay, you can start doing things with Ansible, but you still want to be careful. And start slow. Everything should be under source control. That's the way the system works. My playbooks, which have my automation, they're checked in to some source control. And they're checked out, the latest version is checked out and run to actually do the automation. So everything's under source control. Everything can be reviewed. Everything can go through a change control board. You can make sure that it's done properly. I want to talk about a couple of these other ones. If you're currently using automation tools in your enterprise, evaluate those. What value are they bringing to the table? Oftentimes, Ansible can work with other tools. For example, BigFix, it will replace BigFix, or it can work with Cisco DNA. Same thing. It can work with, or it can work. So, so check what value are they bringing? You want to keep them? What do you want to do with them? Also, too, this is another one. If you have security tools that are out there, typically a security expert, what they'll do is they'll investigate a problem in their SIM tool, and then they'll flip over to another application and go to another tool, maybe log on to a firewall and kind of figure out, okay, do I need to, maybe blacklist an IP address, do an attack? All of that can be scripted. Moving of the data around, so if I need to move logs into my SIM tool, I can move my logs into it to help with the investigation. So I can take these best of breed security tools that typically crop up, and I can glue them together in a consistent, cohesive solution. And then finally, there are gaps. You're not going to find all technologies all the time. You talk to customers, and it may have a kind of a one-off or an oddball type technology. You can lean on the vendor and say, hey, are you automating? Is there any? And also, too, you can look out there. It's amazing what you'll find out there in the wild to support those one-offs. But yeah, and so that is it. And so I'm wrapping up. Yeah, I'm wrapping up. We got 20 minutes. And you can reach out to Bozier and schedule a discussion. We love kind of talking about this and kind of looking what values are going to bring to the organization. What are your pain points? What are you experiencing, within your organization that, that 80-20, where, you're struggling with keeping the lights on, where, can we change the mixture? Assessments, we can do a more of a formal assessment if you'd like, where we come in, spend, 4 hours, and you bring in your folks and we do an analysis there. We also have a tool, and it's created by IDC. It's a third-party tool that was created for us based on our customers, that we can go in and kind of plug in what your business looks like and what you would like to automate, and out comes reports that you can actually use with your management. And they're Word documents, so you can use all or parts of those as well. Happy to give you a demo, and then we also have workshops. And the workshops are typically, focused on networking, infrastructure, and security. Again, Ansible will work across all those, just fine and dandy, but the workshops typically just focus on those. And they're 4 to 6 hours. You're well done, and you can take it for a spin, kick the tires. So October 18th and 19th, we have Ansible Fest. We'd like to invite you. It's where our customers and our experts get together, talk all things Ansible for a couple of days, and you can go out, check out the website, and you can see what we're going to be talking about. And that's it. Any questions?
I'll ask about security operations centers.
Mm-hmm.
Is there some case studies or use cases currently where SOC centers are integrating this sort of integrating the Ansible platform or other similar platforms where they have interest in migrating to it? So, and if so, what's driving?
It's a really good question. So it's by tool set, like QRadar, for example, and that suite of tools, Ansible works well with. And it's to, so if I'm investigating a threat, I might need additional logs to investigate that threat. And so I can suck those logs in. Ansible will do that into the tool set. It has, we have a collection for QRadar, so that we do have that. I lost my train of thought on where I'm going with this. the idea is, okay, I'm getting a threat. And how can I speed my response up, my investigation and my response up to that threat? And automation does that. So if I need to, if I'm being attacked and I need to blacklist an IP address, do something like that, or change a rule, say in QRadar, I can easily do that through automation, and I can do it very quickly. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, and I'm thinking about it from my own company, was a SOC as a service type of a platform.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm not involved in that part of the business, right? I'm customer facing, but curious how automation and this particular platform might be able to enhance some of those offerings. Some of your partners that showed up there previously on the network side, which is where we focus. The advanced scripting that you talked about, right? I assume this being run on, if it's not this platform, a similar platform, right? We've been able to show dramatic improvements for taking down what certain end users might need hours or half of the day for down to minutes, right?
Yes.
Because the scripting could be preloaded and that can drive configuration, right?
Yes.
So thinking of that concept of translating that or attempting to anyway to our security operations center and for the same sort of focus, because as you know, in a SOC, oftentimes the biggest gap is in that that time from notification to action.
Right.
Usually it's a desert. It can be,
Yes.
it can kill an organization.
Yes.
Right. If you can automate, the more you automate that, to provide something that's closer to real time mediation is key. Because there's 1,000 organizations that can identify and notify. Right? What are you doing about it? Right.
Oh, yeah.
And oftentimes the end users are not equipped to act on it or act on it quickly.
Right.
And that becomes a big problem.
Well, and if you have common attacks, you can come up with common playbooks,
Right.
to actually do that. And one thing I didn't mention, but it supports variables, Ansible. So I can go and I can have a gold image for like a network switch, and I can load that gold image, and it would require me, it's called a survey, put in maybe additional information, boom, I hit run, and it goes and it configures that switch. And so I can reuse that code over and over and over again. I mentioned facts, but I can measure drifts. I can go and make a copy of the credentials, into a flat file, and I can compare that to a diff on that and see if there's any drift. Did you change anything? Network administrator, so it also supports OpenSCAP. So there's compliance modules that exist out there that will go and look at the configuration of your servers and warn you that hey, this is not in compliance. So yeah, there's a lot of things that can be done.
I have another question. I blew it up so that you can read it, so if I screw up reading it. I'm curious as to how Red Hat Satellite would work with Ansible and what value add Ansible has for something that already has a puppet master under the hood, such as Satellite's OSS Foreman project.
So Foreman is the open source project for Satellite. Satellite uses Ansible to do the work. That's my understanding. And so we have a thing, and we've been using this. We drink our own champagne, I guess, is the term. So if you use RHEL Insights, it generates an Ansible script. If you have Satellite with that, it will actually run it for you automatically for you. So they all work together. Satellite, Ansible, and Insights. Insights free of charge. It comes with RHEL.
Thank you, our online attendees. Thank you very much for attending, and we'll have this recording available probably starting late tomorrow. We'll send out an email to everybody. So thank you.